Justin.
Hey, how you doing? Good to see you.
It is good to see you. I don't think I've actually seen you since your beginning with Dear White People
Uh,
during the LA Film Festival. That's how long ago it's been. And I've
how's
seen you grow exponentially since then. So it's good to see you under
You
these
too.
circumstances. Yeah.
Yeah, you too.
So you have some history in New
I
Orleans?
do. Yeah, I'm from Houston, but my mom's side of the family is from Louisiana, and we would, basically every weekend and most summers, that's where I would spend my time. And we ironically, New Orleans is the city we drove to and flew out from when my mom took me to Disney World. And so I spent a lot of time in New Orleans, spent a lot of time in different cultural pockets of Louisiana. And when I came on board the film, I was like, there's two things about New Orleans that I would love to see incorporated in the ride, but just are kind of a must for me if I'm going to do this, which is one, we have to honor the fact this is a very black place, and New Orleans in particular is a black city, is 85% black. And the other side of it is that like this culture here is so unique because it is infused with black culture, but specifically there was this time in New Orleans where like you had free people of color building wealth and building these homes and building like a life in a society that kind of has been erased from time. And I don't know, I just felt like if we do that justice, if we incorporate this in the movie, and not to preach or anything, but like just literally show what's there. I felt like we were already telling the story of this mansion and of this ride in a much more authentic way. So that was pretty important for me. That was like a North Star. That was definitely one of those things that made me excited to do the movie.
You already answered my question for me. Thank you, Justin. You making my job easy today. Now, grief is a staple in this narrative film, and grief is a very powerful and manipulative emotion that can empower or paralyze you. And for Ben, it's a little bit of both, right? Um,
Yes.
Ben being played by Oscar nominee Lakeith Stanfield. Has
Right.
that been the case during loss for you? And which one of those, either the empowering or the paralyzation, did the spirit lean into you?
Well, it's funny. I thought, and Lakeith and I have talked about this a lot. There's something radical about putting a black male movie hero, whose whole journey hinges upon his ability to feel difficult emotions. That is not something I see very often. And then he goes on to be a father figure for this little black kid that he doesn't have to be, and that you kind of get the sense he never actually got himself. I thought that was really radical and powerful, and that was definitely like a driver to make this. And in my own life, when I read the script, written by Katie Dippold, who had certainly introduced this idea of grief into the film, I just saw myself. I mean, this was like 2020, 2021. I was dealing with a lot of grief. We were in COVID. We were in, coming out of the so-called racial reckoning, the very short-lived racial reckoning. Things were going well on the outside, but I was dealing with a lot of loss. I lost my father as a kid. Death is something I had to contend with a lot as a kid. And I did something very similar to Ben, in that I created this sort of dry, sarcastic, everything's cool kind of outer persona that allowed me to just kind of bypass some really hard feelings. And I found myself crying reading the script and seeing the story about a man who shows his bravery by sitting still and feeling his feelings. I was really touched by that story. I was really moved by that story, and I felt like, wow, what a wild departure for me to put that kind of story out there into the world.
Speaking of which, putting stories out there into the world, are you a fan of the supernatural? Has that been something that piqued your interest along the way in this journey called life?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I remember seeing Nightmare on Elm Street at a very young age with my aunt Zora. I started with my last movie, Bad Hair. Actually, I started with my series, Dear White People, but definitely with Bad Hair, very intentionally kind of calling upon my ancestors and people who were no longer with me to partner with me in my storytelling. And whether or not that is literally happening or it's just my mind, it doesn't really matter. But it felt important that, telling stories from people who can't tell them themselves, like there's something about that I need to do as a storyteller, and that feels right. And so yeah, it was kind of in my wheelhouse. And when I went there, I kind of doubled down on my woo woo. I've got crystals everywhere normally, but I really went nuts.
Oh,
Started shooting
wow.
this movie. I bought crystals like almost every weekend. They were all around me on the set, and they were, I gave them to the actors. Because I think like what's so special about this movie and about the Haunted Mansion is that, like, yeah, life is hard, yes, life has loss, yes, there's grief, but there's also this other thing about life that we can't quite put our finger on. It is just, it is a little bit bigger than it seems, and it's a little more complicated than maybe it feels, and somehow like that helps me get through really tough moments. Is remembering life is just a bit beyond what I can see, especially when I'm in a dark place. And I don't know; those things are important to me. Those are things that I think about and would incorporate into my work, whether or not it was this.
Okay. And just to lighten it up a little bit and closing it out, if you had to create your own type of haunted mansion, what would that look like?
Ooh, that's really good. I don't know. To be honest with you, I have. Oh, wait. I'm starting to get it. Starting to get a vision. What I love. You know what? I was really been drawing my imagination. I saw a movie called The Descendant. It came out a couple years ago. It's a documentary about
I
uh,
remember that.
yeah, the discovery of the Clotilde, a slave ship, and it's a great documentary. It's a sad story. It's a lot of things, but it also kind of captured my imagination. There's so much that Black people built and did and brought to America that is literally buried under the surface, under the sea, which is an ironic way to put it, I guess. I want to explain. I don't know exactly what the house is or where it is, or if it's a house or if it's a ship or what it is, but I would love to personally explore, artifacts of Black people, things that we built that are currently buried or covered up. There's something about that that's really pulling at me right now. And so it's a weird way to answer your question. I don't know that I did it right,
You
but
did. Listen, there is no right or wrong way to answer a question. It's just your questions and answers are about opinions on both ends. And I think you did fabulous. So it's all good.
yeah, I want to see what's under the surface of some things that we built.
I got you.
Yeah.
Justin Simien, thank you so
Yeah,
much for taking time out to speak with me today. I appreciate you.
of
You know, I'm a
course.
fan of your work and I always support you and will continue to do so moving forward.
Thank you. You look wonderful. It was great to see you.
Ditto. Bye.
Bye.